and budgeting. How much of your budget should be to leisure?
Okay.
Because it always seems such a serious conversation. Like, talk about the school fees, the loans, and the savings. Leisure, how much should we spend?
Oh, there's something called the 50-30-20 rule.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard about it, whereby they say that the 50 should go to your needs. And remember when we were younger, we were taught basic needs of what? Food, shelter and clothing. But that has increased nowadays. Now education is part of needs. Now,
Internet.
not internet yet. Now insurance is part of needs. So that is in the 50. The 30 should absolutely go to leisure, in my view. And by leisure, I just don't mean those are where the internets come in. That is where traveling comes in. That
Internet
is where...
is leisure.
Yes, it is.
Some of us
That
can't
is
work
where...
without the internet.
That is where traveling comes in. That is where doing your hair, buying clothes, all those nice things you want, that is where it comes in. And then now the 20 is supposed to be for savings and investments. So that is where that money should be. So now with the 30%, also consider you've gotten this new thing that we've gotten where you contribute to things. It's something to your friend, a funeral, or what. We always contribute to things. Also, that has been added into now that 50 that we put as needs.
Okay.
Yes. So the question here is, how as Kenyans are we trying to get rid of this conversation of always coming up with money to help people in need? So I believe that is a bigger conversation that we need to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then borrowing is thrown into this as well.
Yeah.
And there's always a conversation. So if you're borrowing from a financial institution, bank, whatever it may be, what should you borrow for? Because it's all part of the plan.
Yeah.
What should you borrow for?
You should borrow for something that will give you a return that is going to make sense based on what you're paying back for that loan. The unfortunate part of it is that we borrow for things like that are liabilities. I could borrow to buy a car, but it's my personal usage. That's a liability because I'm spending on this car, I'm servicing the loan. Unless the car makes sense based on what I do in terms of my job, it is helping with the convenience, because also you cannot put a price on convenience.
You can.
You can.
Just like you can put a price on peace of mind.
Yeah.
Yes. You actually can.
So I strongly believe that it is okay to own a car if it's a liability based on how it's servicing you. So if I take a loan to buy a car and I'm paying back this much, does it make sense considering if I was, let's say, if my job I was operating by Ubers or I was operating by public transport of any other kind? So also take a loan knowing it might not be immediate gratitude. I might take a loan for educational purposes. I might take a loan to educate myself further. I might take a loan to buy a house. I might take a mortgage.
But there will be a return.
Sorry?
Do you count that as having some kind of return?
No, it doesn't have a return. But am I saving on rent? Am I covering this loan payment by how much I would have paid for rent if I hadn't taken this mortgage? That is how you would look at it.
On that mortgage, I've tried to do the math on rent versus mortgage, and it has never balanced out.
There are, unfortunately, or mortgage is not really set out. The interest rates in our country are very, very high.
Yes.
So it might not make. It depends on your reason why, but I don't think. Well,
that math. Any mortgage above 15% compared to equivalent in rent in over 25 years, you will save more money renting in this country than getting a mortgage. The only mortgage that can make sense is anything below 8 to 9% in this country, if you can get it.
Absolutely. I think a mortgage makes sense if you work for maybe an employer who's giving you a staff benefit that gives you a low rate. Other than that, let's stick to rent. Yeah.
Wow, you may be one of the first persons who said that.
No, but it's true. You do the mathematics, anything above 15% over 25 years being paid back, you will pay back 1.5 times the cost of the unit, and you will have saved more than twice the rate by simply paying rent and having the flexibility of not having your finances tied to a building that is not making you any money. You pay government rates on it, and if you default anytime within those 25 years,
you're in problems.
That banker who was smiling at you will hang you. That's the lion you should not be dancing with, in fact.
About Proverb 2.0. Okay, so I mean, there's something you mentioned earlier about women and how they are. What did you say? I think it was more careful, not as risk.
They are risk averse.
They're risk averse. So then, what would be some lessons that women need to learn then when it comes to finances? When it comes to investments, when it comes to savings, what are some lessons that they should be wary of, even when we say women are risk averse?
The one thing they need to be is insurance. I think it's very important for people to get insurance covers and also to understand what the purpose of insurance is. Most people take insurance as an investment, of which it's not. You should be able to have insurance and investments, both of them in your portfolio. The insurance cover is supposed to help you in a situation, to protect you, to get you back to where you were before the situation, not give you a benefit per se. So get insurance covers. Get covers for your children if you have any. Get funeral covers for your parents who are aging. Get such things to be able to support you in the future. Another thing I believe women should also do is get a bit more risky. You will find most chamas with women, the first thing they'll always do is let's buy land. Not that they've seen that it's performing well, or not that there's a history of it doing well. It's just that they feel like it's safe to know I have this piece of property here and it's mine. I want to see, I have a title deed. This shows me that it's mine. However, I believe investing in the financial sector is more lucrative right now in the current times that we are in, rather than holding something.
Okay. Now, think about somebody going into a business, because that's another thing that you've spoken about. You're starting a business alongside it's moonlighting, whatever it may be. And when you're talking about money that you're going to put in, financial capital, it's almost close to impossible to have a startup without that need for financial input. What would you advise? Because, you're not sure of what's going to happen, but you said if you're going to borrow on something that's going to give you returns.
Yes. So you'll find nowadays borrowing, it's not very easy if you don't have a pay slip. If you want to borrow from a financial services, let's say a bank, they normally tie most of the things to pay slips or an asset that you own. I would say if you're planning to start a business, if you're employed, start it then or save towards it then. You already know what you want to do, and this is your budget. Set a realistic goal that in 5 years I'm going to start this business fully and enter it fully. But for now, within year 1 to 5, what steps have I taken to make this business start? It can be a shell for now with someone running it as you're employed and gaining that money. You might use your employment then to take a loan to support this business that you're planning to do. Then once you're ready, leave your employment and go now run it fully. But do not step out today and go start running a business with your emergency fund. That most of the time doesn't work. We have example of retirees who leave employment, they're given their pension money, and they go do what others did because it worked for them. They'll go buy a matatu. They'll go buy a piece of land just like that. And then you don't have liquidity, you don't have income, you don't have anything because they've decided to venture into a business. Immediately you left employment without research, without having experienced it before. If you're employed and you get into a business, if you fail, you still have the backup of your salary to support you. Yeah.
You see, many countries who have developed, I like giving Japan as an example, because it's one of those few countries that has more money to invest than it actually knows what to do with. And I'm not being facetious, because they have a culture of saving.
Yeah.
Again, probably it's by example. Now, in a country like ours, given the way we are structured, and given our communities, at least some communities that I guess we are all similar. It's just more or less of the same. Has the insurance industry ever thought of introducing these wonderful things that they do, or the financial institutions? Have they ever thought of introducing these things into the school curriculum so that as somebody learns, they understand that these things are there? So the idea is in your mind from a very, very early age. So by the time you start earning money, you don't have to be in formal employment. You may have parents who give you pocket money. You may have money that someone gives you as a gift. So that you actually start thinking, because many parents who have the ability to and the means have understood the need for opening accounts for their children. Okay. Now, what about children understanding how to invest that money and how to use it? See, if you set that habit when you're young, by the time you get into adolescence, you have a fairly clear idea of what to do with money.
Yes.
By the time you are probably in employment or you're earning more money, you will not be starting anything new.
Yeah.
For the bulk of us, you start this thing of money when you start earning a salary.
100%. So I totally agree with that the educational system needs to introduce ways in which kids can learn financial planning, even in high school, leave alone even just university, even as back as high school.
I was thinking primary.
Oh, yes. The idea for the new education system was actually supposed to be in line with that, and I hope it's something that will be picked. There's a tweet I read that said, I cannot file my returns, but I know the parts of a flower. So when you look at it that way, you're like, at what point am I being taught? Us as CIC, we do educate educational institutions. We do offer training to institutions to talk to their kids about how they can plan financially. We've had collabos with a couple of schools here and there just to be able to advise the children. But in the long run, it's not sustainable to be doing it as a company. It needs to be introduced in the curriculum in school.
A quick one. You talked about retirement, and you said that Kenyans are the poorest retirees, apart from City. Anyway, tongue in cheek. So, how much is enough to retire on?
First of all, money will never be enough.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Two, they normally say at least have 60% of your current income as your income when you retire.
60%.
60%. If I'm earning 100,000 as my total inflow net in a month, I should target having 60,000 as my inflow once I retire. Because we believe that after retirement, you'll be done with the major expenses such as school fees, maybe paying rent, things that you used to do and spend money on. They'll have reduced drastically then. So you should budget towards that. And remember, we're living longer nowadays. So you have longer years after retirement, almost similar to the number of years you worked for. So you need to budget for this. You need to budget of 40 years for working and 30 years of retirement, or even 20 years. So you need to plan for those 20 years, what am I going to do? So the reason why we were even ranked as the poorest is because most retirees are actually going back seeking jobs, even from their former employers, to seek jobs to be able to run. They are entering into... They're not relaxing, they're not resting, they're not retiring comfortably. They are working. Okay. So 60% is the answer.
Question. The United States has a similar problem. Many of the Uber drivers and people who are getting back into employment are retirees.
Yes.
And some have argued that for as long as you have strength and health, in fact, some have argued that you'd be actually healthier if you keep working. So instead of me saving 60%, why don't I change? I work for 50 years and retire for 10.
You see, if I want to work to be healthy, I'll walk around my farm. I will have passive income and go play a game of golf.
You have a farm.
Yes.
A country like the one he refers to,
Yes.
the farm is that house.
Yes.
This concept of gishagi that we have in Kenya, they don't have.
Okay.
That alternative, because we think retirement, we think moving from an urban area
To a rural area.
For them, that doesn't exist.
Yes.
Working for health is different to me working for income, for basic income. Yes, it's bad to sit around doing nothing, especially the older you are. However, if I'm working for my health, I don't think that is bad at all. The issue comes in when I have no other means of income apart from going back to work after retirement. That is where the issue comes in.
I want to take you to a completely different field of endeavor, academia. And I want you to look at the people who are considered to be serious resources. They are old. That same country that he mentions, retirees, you're a president, you're put on what you call the lecture circuit.
Yes.
People leave commercial industries, go into politics, go back into industry, enter the lecture circuit. Now, do you know what that then does? You then have a country that, or an economy that never loses its skilled manpower.
Yes.
It never loses the institutional memory of experience. It's always there, and it's always being infused in some of the people who are younger. If you look at a country like Japan, 70-year-olds and work.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that there is a Western concept of retirement that worked when we were fewer, resources were plenty, cost of living was dirt cheap. So that concept could work.
Yeah.
But in this modern day and age, take the demographics of even people who earned very good salaries, were able to buy their own houses in town, probably rent them out when they retire, and they go to the rural homes, and ask yourself how they are living. It is a very difficult life for most of those people. Extremely difficult. And these are not people who didn't plan. These are not people who didn't think ahead. They did all these things.
I think the bigger conversation there should be about the fact that, one, if these people don't retire, the younger people don't get jobs. That is also a factor to consider. And two, I might plan for retirement as myself, but if I don't educate the people around me to plan as well, my children. You know, majority of retirees are paying their grandchildren's school fees. Mm-hmm. This basically means that as Linda, as I was empowering myself with the tools and knowledge to save, I did not do that for my children. I did not manage to help them also accumulate something. When they got their first jobs, I told them, put this aside. Let's save for the future. And by not doing that, now I'm left retired, but still paying school fees.
You introduced an interesting discussion. You see, that young people can't get jobs is not the fault of their parents. It's because you have an economy that hasn't grown.
Yes.
Because if the economy grows, it's able to cater for the large number of people that it produces every year. Because remember, these people, if they enter, whether it's the job market or they create their own jobs, they become taxpayers.
Yes.
So that country keeps getting money. Now, I'll give you an example of a different country. It's called Estonia. Their education system teaches you and insists that as part of your training, you have a business plan. Secondary school, I'm not talking university. By the time you finish, one of the things that is examined is whether that plan can actually be implemented and whether it can generate money. So by the time someone is leaving Form 4, they have an idea of the sort of business they can do. Yeah. University is the same thing. By the time someone graduates, they probably have a business they're going to run. So if you look at the demographics of Estonia, you are told they have more jobs than they have people. Yeah. But you see, it is in their education system. There are always jobs because almost everyone who goes through the education system thinks of how to create a job. We educate people to think of how to be employed.
Yeah.
PhDs look for employment.
Yes. And they should.
Yeah. I'm saying PhD, master's, degree.
Yeah. Yes.
Everyone looks for a job.
Yes.
Very few job makers.
And it is how we train our people. Because somebody has the education but doesn't have the skills.
Agreed, yeah.
Yes. Now, skills are something you imbue, something you teach. Now, we got rid of these apprenticeship systems where you're attached to someone, people who do things so that you actually acquire the skills. Yeah. Now, employers insist